Hi there, I'm Debi Davis and welcome to Behind the Scenes. Today we have a fabulous guest. His name is Tim Janis. Let me tell you just a little bit about him before we introduce him. With millions of albums sold, five National Public TV specials, and 10 Billboard charting CDs, composer Tim Janis has worked with some of the top artists in the music and entertainment industry. From Sir Paul McCartney, Billy Joel, Ray Charles, to George Clooney and James Earl Jones. Composer, musician, conductor, and arranger, Tim Janis has a deep belief in creating music that can heal and bring peace on a global level. His music has traveled a long and fascinating journey from the hallowed ground of Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center in New York to Africa, China, and Eastern Europe. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You have quite the resume.
Well, it all comes from, I think, just the beauty of Maine and how much it just charges up and inspires me. So.
And you are from Maine.
Yes.
He's a local. We love it. Let's go back a little bit. Let's ask you when you first took an interest in music.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, for anyone thinking of going into music, I actually started kind of late. I was at a military school in New Jersey, and so not really on the track for music, but about 15 years old, I really got the bug, and that's what I wanted to do. Those were back in the days of analog, and so I got a 4-track recorder and started writing songs. And from there, I just kept pursuing it.
But what was it that actually said, hey, I think I'm going to go into music? Was it an artist you heard on the radio, or?
I have to thank God, it was in my heart. If there was, I guess the best way you can describe it is like energy, that you feel. Mm-hmm. And before you do music, you don't know how to express it. But then as music comes involved, that's how it flows into that. And I think that's what people feel when they, listen to my music. They feel that energy.
That's incredible. You're right, because most kids start, in the 5th grade?
Oh, yeah.
In school band?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was in like 3rd company. I wasn't even in the band company, so, yeah.
What was your main instrument?
I really would say it was composing. People,
it just was.
It was just writing and being creative, and I did, piano is what I worked from, but because I went to a couple of different schools, and I remember once, this was at UNH, the teacher took me out and said, I don't think you're going to make it here,
Oh, no.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't even know what bar lines were. I was like, but it was in your heart. And I think when you're going to pursue like a creative career, it has to just be like, you're just all in on it, and that's what you want to do, because it's a lifestyle.
It was just what you were meant to do.
Yes.
That's clearly what it is.
Didn't have a choice. Dishwasher, musician. Not that there's anything wrong. That's what I was, a dishwasher.
Which pays more?
No, but I say that actually respectfully, because I was a ceramic technician and for many, many years. And so, but what I mean by that mostly is that I just, music was just what I could do,
Sure.
Not a lot of other things.
That's fantastic. Now, you believe that music can be more than entertainment. Tell me about that.
Definitely. Well, I felt like as I did my music, over the years, that growing the heart, remember how I mentioned, how did you start? And I felt like it was from my heart. And growing your heart helped improve your music. So that led me on many journeys to do that.
Interesting. Around the world.
Yes, around the world. Yeah, and there's so many ways to speak into that, because obviously there's a lot of charitable projects that you get involved with. But I think that the part that really reflects it the most is, my instrumental music now it's like all over the world. And I've become a bit of a YouTube star, my channel's grown.
Indeed.
And I write back every message, and I get so many messages where people are in really difficult times, and the music brings them peace. And so I think that kind of feeds into the whole charitable and giving aspect of what I want to do with the music, because you hear people saying, well, my mother was passing and the music helped during that moment. Mm-hmm. And it really says, well, maybe this music can be used to help with autism or cancer or other areas.
And you've moved into that area quite nicely.
Yes, many different areas. You know, I kind of just like to go where I'm called to go. But when you mentioned Sir Paul McCartney and Billy Joel and Ray Charles, you know, that CD was to benefit the American Cancer Society. It's called Music of Hope. And then, of course, the movie, and my last 5 years at Carnegie, 4 years, were for the Golden Hat Foundation, which helps those living with autism.
Right. That's fantastic. So who were your influences when you first started composing music? I know that you said it came from within, but did anybody strike you and say, "Oh, I like that"?
Well, I think that's the come from within part is because I didn't set off to do instrumental music. I like to sing, and you know, I liked a lot of bands back then in the days, but it never worked. But I wrote this instrumental music, and I remember a guy in my band was like, "Oh man, that's so beautiful," because I put this seascape, you know, it was a song I did way before anything, you know, and I'd written this song, and I saw put on my vocal CD, and they're like, "That's so great," and then my singing, you know, so it was, you know, so I was inspired obviously by, you know, film scores and so many, you know, Chariots of Fire, whatever composers, you know, John Williams and Barry and all those guys. But it wasn't like I pursued the instrumental music. But then it just came to be. And so when I wasn't making it, you know, with the singing, I saw that people liked my instrumental music. And so it happened very organically. And I'm like, well, if this is what works, great. You know, and then as years went by, I understood more what it was I was doing and how it affected people and where I fit in.
That's very interesting. So you have over 15 solo compositions. You got many Christmas recordings. Your Christmas, is it Christmas Home CD? It's lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely. Now you have a CD, Along the Shore of Acadia. And was that in regard to Arcadia National Park?
Yeah,
right here in Maine?
Of course, yes. You know, my music is often paired with nature. You know, God's creation is so beautiful, and I feel like music combined with the nature is just, they kind of reflect one another.
Sure.
But the funny thing about that CD is, so going back to my early days, that was my first CD, and the only sign that like I was going to maybe be in the business was I had sent back in those days a little cassette tape in an envelope to Windham Hill Records, and I got a letter back from the A&R saying, you know, we like your music and this is really great. So I thought, I was like, good, you know, I made it. I'm going to get a big house by the sea and write music, yay. And then the A&R people got let go because Windham Hill got bought out by BMG.
Oh.
And so then my younger brother gave me enough money to put out my first CD, Along the Shore of Acadia, which, you know, was sort of a musical portrait of Acadia National Park. And I played, my very first show was here in Kennebunkport at an Earth Festival.
Nice.
And I played and I sold 10 CDs. It's like $100. I thought I was a millionaire. Yeah. And that really started the whole thing. And then years later, this is just interesting for people going into the business, I actually got my music to Will Ackerman, who owned Windham Hill. And he had some not so nice words to say about my music. And yeah, surprisingly. So wow. Good thing I never got signed.
Yeah.
Because within a company, you know, you really need to have everybody on board to support what you're doing.
Sure.
So, yeah, that's how that started.
Wow, that's so interesting. Now that is the music that was chosen for 2 public broadcasting shows, yes?
Yes. Well, I've had many public broadcasting shows, if you're referring to my PBS specials.
Yes, yes, that is The Beautiful America and Coastal America.
Yeah, and those 2, we got to work with George Clooney, which was awesome.
He was the narrator.
The narrator, yep. And beautiful, well, my actually first PBS special was The American Composer in Concert, which didn't go as large, but that's the one we filmed at Lincoln Center with the American Symphony Orchestra. Nice. So I was conducting.
Yes.
And then we sort of got more understanding of how public television works, and that's Beautiful America was the next special. And I think one fun story was I got to meet George Clooney in Los Angeles. He drove over on his motorcycle and met him at the voiceover studio. And he was like I've heard this actually, someone else was just sharing a story about him when I was out at the color correction roundabout in Los Angeles, color correcting buttons, and how they met George Clooney. And I had the same experience. He's super nice and super hilarious and funny. He told all these stories, which I retold and told, but you just felt like you were his best friend. So
That's great.
Yeah, he was really great. So.
That's it's so wonderful when you have that experience. So many times I think the opposite is true. Well, it can be true, not always is, but now you created Celebrate America. It was a program designed to feature high school students and music educators from across America performing on public TV, and to date, over 22,000 students have been on that program. Is that program ongoing?
Yeah, it's actually 60,000 now.
Oh, 60.
Right.
Wow.
That's not we haven't updated it. It's still going. I just did Montana last year. So there's at different times we've done more markets. Kind of started, I was down in Connecticut at CPTV, which is Connecticut Public Broadcast, and I just heard about, you know, our youth and in schools, and just felt like this program could really be beneficial, both for just the music, because it's inspirational music, and then also just to honor our music and art programs, because they just need to be, you know, not cut and kept going. And so we've done different PBS markets all over the country. The closest we got to Maine, because it's up to each market to decide whether they want to do it or not.
Right.
But we did New Hampshire, we did Vermont, and you know, we've done Detroit, and I mean on, so many different markets across the country. But Montana's been the longest running. I think it's maybe 7 years. So I'm back there. We're going every other year, and I'm back next year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's, yeah.
Well, who's in charge of Maine? We need to do it in Maine.
Yeah,
My goodness.
I know, and I've certainly reached out a bunch of times. Maybe, you know, well, Montana's so spread out, so it's nothing, because I remember them saying, you know, it's kind of spread out, but Montana, like, kids come and stay overnight. But, yeah, it's
much bigger than Maine, too. Yeah.
It is much bigger, yeah.
My goodness. Now, in 2012, you produced the American Christmas Carol concert for Kate Winslet's Golden Hat Foundation at Carnegie Hall. You are there again this year as well, are you?
Yes, yes. So we're still working with the Golden Hat Foundation, which they're the co-director with Kate Winslet. Margaret Eric's daughter's son is Kelly's nonverbal autistic. And what her goal is, two things, is one is to shine a light on people who are autistic, like their abilities, like her son, because her son's a composer. I've actually have a little bit of his music in the movie, and I work with him. And also they want to build campuses, you know, because one day, I mean, when you have a son like Kelly, it's full-time taking care of him.
Sure,
so they're hoping to build a campus so children like Kelly will have a place to go when their parents no longer can take care of them. But anyway, we've been there. Last year we did a show with Robert Redford and his wife, and Al Gore was there. It was a nature program. But for the 4 years, aside from that show, we've been with Kate Winslet and their foundations and working to raise money and doing a beautiful Christmas show. That's so important, having a place for autistic people to go after their parents go. We have that problem in Maine. A lot of aging parents just are not sure what's going to happen. Yeah, just speaking to the autistic component, you know, I'm outside that, but I've often used this analogy when I worked with the American Cancer Society. You know, you work to raise money, and there's, of course, all the people that were affected and had cancer, and of course, all of us have that in our lives. But those people, you know, they can be cured, and they can be strong, and they can use their resources to give back to the organization to help cancer. I found with the autistic families that it's such an economical strain on those families, and it's really just consumes them, and that they can't, you know, they can't get that message out. They can't fundraise as much because they're just totally locked down, and so it's a hard battle to fight. Very definitely. Well, let's talk about Buttons, a new musical film. It was filmed right here in Maine. Yes, exactly. Yeah, Maine was just, I mean, we were here, and there's so many different levels that we were inspired, but one of them was like the great American musicals, like the Gene Kelly Singing in the Rain and all those great shows. And as you know, we have a special feature. We worked with Gene Kelly's wife, which comes after the film. But one of the pieces that started was working with Eldridge Lumber. They gave us a giant warehouse down in York for 2 years. Nice. And we built a gigantic standing set, just like, I mean, it was like MGM all over down there. Not everybody knew about it, but people came in and saw the set, and that was like more impressive than the movie. It was like when you watch the movie, you'll see the town. I shouldn't give this away, but you know, there was a toy store and a bakery and a millinery store, and that was all down there. We had a horse and carriage in there and extras. And,
wow.
But Maine made it possible.
Oh, that is fantastic. Now, you've done a lot in your life. What inspired you to actually write the movie? Because you wrote the script and you did the music for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the script, and I co-wrote it with my wife.
With
Elizabeth,
your wife.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it really started, I was at St. Christopher's in New York, and this is a true story, but it was the Eucharist, and I had this idea, and it was one of those inspirational things. I came home and I wrote down 2 pages of material,
wow.
and that was the beginning of the story. And then probably the second part of that is I wrote a song called Keep a Smile on Your Face. I love writing these really like fun, quirky songs. And we sent it out to Paradigm, where Dick Van Dyke's manager was, and said, could you get this to Dick? And it was like 3 weeks later, on the caller ID it said Richard Van Dyke. And he called us directly. Yeah, and that's, I mean, usually like it's the agent calling like, maybe, but he's like, hey, we got to do something with that song. You know,
that's
like,
fabulous.
I fell over. And that started the first bit of the filming, which we did, we filmed the first song, Keep a Smile on Your Face, that Christmas out in Los Angeles. It was actually at Golden Oak Ranch, which is Disney's backlot.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Well, tell us a little bit about the movie, and then after that we'll play a trailer for the audience to check out.
Well, it's hard to put so much about the movie into words, but I felt, I guess, most important is maybe to feel my heart from it, and I really wanted movies that would make you feel good and inspire you, and you know, the closest thing I would say, like It's a Wonderful Life, or some of those older films that just really uplifted and gave you hope.
We need that today.
We do need it. I know. I think that's so important. And so when you go see the movie, I feel like it's going to give you a lot of hope. And I think for everyone in Maine, you know, I think we should all be proud here in Maine, because even though there's 2 Academy Award winners, you know, narrating, and there's all these celebrities, this is Maine. I mean, it's about a mill girl in the mills, and 2 angels, Dick Van Dyke and Angela Lansbury. So it's this great Hollywood film, but really came out of Maine.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a quick peek at the trailer for Buttons, a new musical film. We'll be right back.
I never imagined that in my family's darkest moment would come a miracle.
Rose? Do you think I have a guardian angel?
You most certainly do.
Perhaps in the heavens there are greater things at work than what we think we may know.
I'll always be with you, Annabelle.
Love carries over oceans and time. Do you believe me, Annabelle?
Yes.
Then we are inseparable.
Annabelle, we each have a guardian angel that is with us from the moment we're born till the day we die. Believe, Annabelle, and take heart. You're never alone. Promise me you'll remember what I have said.
Your mother was a silly girl with ridiculous notions. Sorry if she filled your head with fairy tales and nonsense, but that's not how the real world works.
Have a wonderful life ahead of them.
And so it was that Christmas in Belford Hills. The heart found more than the eye could see. Hope prevailed, and help came from the most unexpected places.
includes a special tribute to legendary dancer, director, and choreographer Gene Kelly, hosted by Kelly's wife and biographer Patricia Ward Kelly. Buttons, coming to select cinemas nationwide December 8th only. Tickets available at fathomevents.com.
That was the trailer, and you've got to see this movie. I got to tell you, when I saw the trailer, I almost cried. And it's only a trailer, so I can't wait to see the movie. It's narrated by Robert Redford and Kate Winslet. And let's talk about some of the actors in here. Abigail Spencer, Jane Seymour, Roma Downey, Ian Grufford, Katie McGrath, Robert Picardo, Charles Shaughnessy, Paul Green, John Delancey, on and on. It's a star-studded film.
It is. It is.
I absolutely cannot wait to see it. Now, it's going to be in movie theaters nationwide, right, on one night? Is that right?
One day. 12:55 p.m.
At 12:55 p.m., and that's going to be Saturday, December 8th. And it's going to be in more than 500 select movie theaters. And you've got to call your local theater to check if yours is airing it, or you can purchase tickets if you go to fathomevents.com. And we'll give you that information again. What is are we all going to need a tissue box when we go there, or is it just me?
Well, I don't, I would say yes. And I watch it and I know the film, and I can get choked up at points. And I think, filmmaking is kind of bizarre because it's such a big piece of work. You really don't know what you're going to get until it's over, I guess. But there's a director once said something, bring me the moment. They said those moments. And I feel like, to me, there's, I won't say how many, but there's these certain moments that get me. So I think that, coupled with, I found personally, and of course this is my own creative work, so you never know, but it kind of has a lasting feeling after you watch it. But it is really there's happiness, obviously, with Dick Van Dyke singing and dancing. There's so many joyous, and Angela Lansbury, wow.
Yeah.
It's so cute. And then it's about life. If you're going through a hard time, anybody out there, it's about overcoming that and through believing that, and really, hope is not something that is just a great idea. We don't live without hope, whatever it is. And I think that's why we said it's the greatest adventure. You have to start on the adventure of hope. So in the movie, the people that lost or had good reasons for losing their hope have it restored. And I feel like I'm hoping that those that go see it, that are in that position, find their hope restored.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. Now, once this airs in the theaters, are we going to be able to purchase a CD anywhere?
No.
No.
No. So, what we're kind of hoping, it's the distribution of a film, and this is for laymen, you don't even want to go there. It's tricky, and we really wanted people to see it in the theaters, and we want to make it a family experience. I know, around the holiday time, people love to go out and see shows and do things with families, and so we wanted to really encourage that. But of course, I want a lot of people to see it, but we're hoping. So we might, this is some new news, we're raising money for the Golden Hat, and we might also be working with Avril Lavigne to raise money for her foundation to help those living with Lyme's disease. And so that coming together to help promote it and get the word out should make this year, exciting. And right now what we're hoping is that we'll do the same thing next year, but maybe more days in the theaters, and work again with potentially Avril and other artists to make it kind of like an annual Christmas special.
I love it.
Yeah, I miss the days with Bing Crosby would be, kind of let his hair down and be there with his family on CBS and hey everybody, and all the different people come together for a cause. So that's kind of what we're hoping, but we'll see, so.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm so looking forward to it. Now, after the movie, you're going to have a special feature with Patricia Ward Kelly. She is Gene Kelly's wife.
Yes.
And she's going to share some behind-the-scenes stories about some of her husband's most popular movies.
That's right.
That ought to be very interesting.
Well, and here's another thing. Mainers should know that she actually came to Maine. So when she did her stories about her husband, she was on set.
Oh, was she?
She was on set. So you're looking at the Button set, which is no longer there, but that's at Eldred's Warehouse. And yep, she told the stories, and it's pretty kind of amazing. You know, I think when she married him, she was with him about 11 years, writing down these stories. And, you know, we're just such big fans of Gene Kelly, and that's why, you know, having Dick Van Dyke as a song and dance man really is just amazing. So she'll share some stories that you've never heard before about Gene Kelly and, you know, the people he worked with from the sets of Buttons.
That's fantastic. So once again, it's going to air on one day only on December 8th. That's this December 8th, 12:55 p.m. It's a Saturday. And that's going to be local time in only 500 movie theaters. But you're going to contact your local theaters to see if they're airing it, or you can contact the website fathomevents.com. Go there, see if you can purchase tickets, and see if your movie theater comes up. And you must have some stories you can share with us about the filming. And how long did it take to film?
Well, it took 5 years.
5?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a long time, isn't it, for a movie?
Yes, it is. But, you know, so we're independent, you know, filmmakers, obviously. So there's a lot that goes on through those 5 years, a lot of growth for us. And then, you know, it's costly. And so there's a lot of, you know, saving as you go in to do each shoot. So in all, it's okay. We do, you know, certainly differently if we did a different movie. Or a new movie, another movie, but it was a fun time. You know, there's so many great times. You know, Steve Pulos is here, you know, and set this up. You know, was behind the scenes, and he saw, you know, how much fun, you know, it is, and what a great experience. I mean, it was interesting. The day I had Dick Van Dyke and Angela Lansbury on the set, I was so looking forward to that, because here are these two people together. I think it was the first. I mean, they're in Mary Poppins, but they're not in the same scene together. With the new one coming up, Mary Poppins 2. But when they came in and they started speaking, they were talking about the Hoover administration. You know, like, wow. And they were just so awesome. And they in the movie, they were just so great. And that's just one example, but there were so many, you know, different artists I got to work with. You know, it was Robert Redford when he did his narration. We worked with them a lot out in Santa Fe. You know, Abigail and Paul Green, and I mean, Jane Seymour, people don't know this probably, but Jane Seymour came to Kennebunkport to film.
That's nice.
And we actually, we filmed with Jane, and then we went up to Victorian Mansion. Nice. We filmed there through the evening. This is a funny story, because we were out at St. Anne's filming, and I didn't get back from filming that night until 6 a.m. Wow. So I hadn't slept. Jane got back to her hotel. And I got to St. Anne's Church, and we had covered it with snow. And I'm like, oh no, like they're going to wake up and see this, and I'm trying to clean it up. And then we had to pick up Jane from the White Barn Inn at 10 o'clock, and we drove up to northern Maine, because we were meeting John Fishman from the band Fish, and Jane's son wanted to meet John, the drummer. So we spent the day there, and we were driving back from up northern Maine with Jane Seymour in the car and her son, and I'm like falling asleep, trying to stay awake, because it had been like this whole long bit. You know, but it was great out in Kennebunkport. You know, the Bush's grandchildren were in the film, and John Fishman from Fish and his wife and kids were in the film. Oh wow! You know, I think we have like one of the girls, the young girl. The governor of New Hampshire's granddaughter, I can't remember the name, but you guys probably know. Her daughter's in the film. Nice. And so many young students. Gina Conley brought in so many young children from around York, and yeah, it just goes on and on. I don't mean to do my thank you list now, but
no, you may if you'd like. You certainly may. Again, let's go over where we can find tickets. We're going to go to fathomevents.com, and all this information will be on the screen. The film is called Buttons, a new musical film. It's going to be aired in 500 movie theaters on December 8th at 12:55 p.m. local time, so wherever you are, local. And you can check to see if your favorite movie theater is carrying the movie. It's going to be fantastic. I'm curious, what does your next project look like?
Oh, well, you know, it's funny, because we actually have when we were filming Buttons, we kept starting our second movie, which was kind of ludicrous because I can't even, this year, like finishing Buttons, like all the composing, special effects, I don't even want to tell you what that costs. But there's some super duper special effects, as you'll even see in the trailer. And special effects meaning actually just, like we shot Dick Van Dyke in Los Angeles, but when you see it, it's a beautiful snowy home.
Yes.
So it's just making the film look in continuity. But we had scouted for our film, this great theater on Broadway, which is in Los Angeles, beautiful theater, and it's called Letters from Home. And the hardest part is we actually were with Dick Van Dyke and his wife, and we went to see a concert, Dust Bowl Revival. We went out to dinner with them, and Dick was sitting across the table. He was like, "So when are we gonna start our next movie?" And I'm like, because like when an actor is ready, you want to go.
Yes.
And it's so built around him. It's so we have that, but I have a CD. I haven't put out a new CD in 6 years, and we're thinking to call it Spirit of the Trees, and the music's like pretty much all done. So we're thinking of maybe shooting a PBS special for that, like next spring, maybe even in New York, because we have a show kind of set up on the 6th of April, and it really has been my music that's supported the movie. So I should do some music, I really like this music. It's going to have a lot of the Celtic women, Mairead Nesbitt and Lynn Hillary, part of it.
Nice.
And maybe some more. So, but you'll kind of see,
Creators usually, though, have 2 or 3 projects ahead, don't they? Have some kind of hint of something going on.
Yes. And I think there's a little bit with Buttons where it took so much that, and there was, especially in the last few months where, you have to, the breath that you're taking is much, it's just to kind of reset your focus.
Sure.
And because it's a pattern, with Buttons, since I also was an editor for it, I was just day after day, doing that.
Living
and some of the technical, the music and the composing. So you sort of, when I go back to music, you have to kind of shift gears. It's more just audio and decide what you want to do. Yeah.
Have the people who participated in the movie seen the movie yet in its completion? No? Nobody
much have seen it. More just business people. And I think that we're going to maybe start getting them up to speed a bit, because whether they can all make it out to the theater.
Right.
But we kind of, we didn't share it too much, and we really only finished, with the color correction was like, I think we were in Los Angeles like last week. So,
wow, that's cool. That's close.
Yeah, we just finished the music like 2 weeks ago. So, that as we kind of knew about our distribution date, we were kind of later in having like everything set and in place because we were just filming this past year to kind of plug in all these different pieces.
Sure. It's fantastic. Yeah. I am really looking forward to it. It is Buttons, a new musical film. It's going to be in 500 select movie theaters nationwide. You can go to fathomevents.com to check out tickets and to see if your favorite movie theater is running it. And I encourage you all to grab your family, go see this movie. If you see the trailer alone, it's on YouTube, by the way.
Yes.
Check out the trailer. It's going to be a really inspirational, uplifting movie, and it's something we should all see, especially this time of year.
Exactly. It'll really get you in the Christmas spirit, and I don't think there's anything else out there like that, like this film. I hope and I feel like it could be the beginning of something that will have a lot of, like a long lifetime to it.
That's nice.
There's just, I guess there's nothing else out there because there's just nothing out there like us, in the way that we want to do things and have done things, which I think is actually very much Maine. We are really just like rogue. We're just like everything about it. It's kind of unbelievable. The fact that we have the cast we do, and I think that we put together something like we did. A lot of times I'm actually like the main DP. A lot of times I was just like, we're doing this, and of course with Elizabeth's help, and so I think when you see it, there's sort of that American story of like, I can do this, behind the story that I think we've seen over and over again in our country.
But our youth need to see that more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to speak at Westbrook High School in a couple days, tomorrow. And, you know, I think that the message to the kids, and I think Steve would say this, you know, that the equipment is available, you know, now more than ever. And the kids, you know, are savvy to like YouTube and like making videos. But you really do just have to do it, you know. And I've heard that. I like to listen to biographies of like George Lucas and Spielberg, and that's what they do. You have to do it. And so whatever your creative ambition is or desire, you have to do it, and it has to go before everything else. Eating, everything. You know,
That's true.
It just because it's your passion. I mean, and I'm not exactly joking, but there's, you know, like when I shot here in Maine, and I'll go by my thank you list. So Eldridge was so kind, and they gave us this warehouse, and it was funny because, you know, we built these giant sets with like bricks, like cement, the whole deal. And I was going to mention the Trolley Museum let us shoot there. So
nice.
Beautiful footage. You know, things that you take for granted here in Maine, when you're in Los Angeles and you show like this trolley, they're just like, what?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then St. Anne's Church, I mean, it's so beautiful. It's all rock, you know, the Tiffany windows and beautiful. First Parish Church, we filmed behind the church there in the graveyard.
Nice.
The York Historical Society, we filmed in the old jail.
Oh, wow.
And in some of their buildings. Yeah. And then, you know, places like the White Barn Inn, Maine Diner, and York Harbor Inn help put up our celebrities. Actually, who was it? American Workshop, Cindy over at American Workshop here in Kennebunk. They did so much to help with props, and which was just invaluable. I mean, when you're out in Los Angeles, try to find an antique, you know.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Like, when you go to a prop shop, you wouldn't believe it. Like when we had to get these costumes, so they'll be like, I'll just tell you this for fun. Some of the costumes, like we'll go to Western Costume, like, well, this hat has a $5,000 value. This dress has a $3,000. So you have to get insurance. And then if the cost of these props are like, you know, let's say $4,000 to get these dresses or whatever, then they take 3 times that amount hold. So they'll hold $12,000 on your card for 3, you know.
Oh, wow.
And so you're just talking about some dresses and some things that then you're responsible for, obviously. And you know, when you can be here in Maine and you can get these antiques or these things that, you know, if you're in Los Angeles, you'd have to be like Spielberg, you know, to deal with it. And it's just all here. And so it's very much appreciated and made it possible, you know, in each instance.
So Maine is a good place to make a movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and it just, it's just so colorful and so beautiful, and everybody and the people like are so excited to be part of it. Like Carol Roll and her husband, you know, they were between, you know, they were catering or helping to finish the final construction, you know, for the building, and the list goes on and on. Just so much enthusiasm. So I think when the movie comes out, what I think's a happy part about it is it's Hollywood. I mean, it's got all these celebrities, but it was the backbone of Maine really that supported it. And so, and as people watch this movie around the world, well, at least around the U.S. now in theaters, they're going to see it as one piece. Like you'd see Mary Poppins, you don't really take apart the pieces.
Right.
But it's going to seem like this whole thing with Dick Van Dyke and everything else was pretty much shot in Maine, even though we took segments. But whenever we were in Los Angeles, we were finding Victorian homes that looked like Maine.
Wow.
You know, and matching it to the you know, the theme of the film.
That's incredible. Incredible. Well, when you look at the trailer on YouTube for Buttons, a new musical film, you're going to see that the quality of the movie is just superb.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see it. So let's go over that one more time. You can get tickets at fathomevents.com, or you can go to your favorite movie theater if they are airing it. It's going to be on December 8th, Saturday at 12:55 p.m. local time. I encourage one and all to please go out and see the movie. I think you're going to really enjoy it. And Tim Janis, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and it's just been great to be able to express some of my behind-the-scenes feelings to everybody.
I love it. I love it.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Behind the Scenes.
I never imagined that in my family's darkest moment would come a miracle.
Rose, do you think I have a guardian angel?
You most certainly do.
Perhaps in the heavens there are greater things at work than what we think we may know.
I'll always be with you, Annabelle.
Love carries over oceans and time. Do you believe me, Annabelle?
Yes.
Then we are inseparable.
Annabelle, we each have a guardian angel that is with us from the moment we're born till the day we die. Believe, Annabelle, and take heart. You're never alone. Promise me you'll remember what I have said.
Your mother was a silly girl with ridiculous notions. Sorry she filled your head with fairy tales and nonsense, but that's not how the real world works.
They have a wonderful life ahead of them.
And so it was that Christmas in Belford Hills. The heart found more than the eye could see. Hope prevailed, and help came from the most unexpected places.
Includes a special tribute to legendary dancer, director, and choreographer Gene Kelly, hosted by Kelly's wife and biographer Patricia Ward Kelly. Buttons, coming to select cinemas nationwide December 8th only. Tickets available at fathomevents.com.